Welcome to Beneath the Surface, everyone. We'll go beyond the highlights and the stats and dig into the stories that make us who we are. Today is a special episode for me and it's very personal for me. This is somebody today that taught me a lot of patience, taught me discipline, and to be more important, to be understanding of who I was as a person and to be more calm and collected. When I was a rough seventh grader coming to LCA, dealing with anger, frustration, and feeling unseen. This is somebody that didn't give up on me. She leaned in me. So today we're going beneath the surface with Miss Elmy. So Miss Elmy, can you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, and I was at LCA for probably 14 years, started as a school teacher, math, and then was a principal there as well.
Yeah. So great, great. So can you talk to us about your background before you got to LCA?
Never thought I'd go into teaching. Was super shy when I was in high school and after high school. No, you have those pivotal moments where something happens, and I have like I have an exact story. I won't bore you with
Yeah,
that, but I can tell you the place, the time, and the song. And I just decided that I wanted to make a difference in someone's life, and I loved kids. Teaching didn't make a lot of money, so I didn't think that was something I wanted to do. And I decided I would rather be happy and changing, at least try to change the world. You always have these hopes and dreams
yeah,
and focus on money. So I went into teaching. I taught 4th grade for several years. My kids started going to LCA, and Dr. Miller approached me and asked if I wanted to teach part-time. It was a leap of faith because I did not think I was qualified at all to teach at a Christian school. My walk with Christ was very sure. A lot of
yeah.
growing as I taught there, so I took a leap and said I'd do it and taught time. And then, as you know, LCA, she ended up doing more and more and more, and I ended up
Yeah.
going full time and ended up being a principal there, which I bet you $1,000,000 that would have never happened. But I loved it. I did. I loved it. It was really a service that I enjoyed doing, and always hope that you make a difference in people's life. Even now, if I looked back, I'd be like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So when I see people like you, or I run across other kids on Facebook back and tell me, "Hey, you made a big difference in my life," it really means a lot. It's more than the
Yeah.
money that we ever earned,
Yeah.
because I really don't know if you do. You try and
Yeah.
every day it's just like any job. You show up every day, you do the same thing every day and
Yes,
different
ma'am.
problems every day. It's encouraging when I see kids like you who it affect you, and amazing person. You've just so proud of you.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for kind words. You know what I mean? You did make an impact. And where did you grow up before you came to LCA? Did you grow up in Utah or did you come? Obviously, I knew you talked about Nebraska for a little bit. We growing up, right?
Uh, yeah,
Good old Cornhuskers.
yeah, I'm a big Husker fan. Some year we're gonna come back and win. Keep having hope for a lot of years, but grandparents came from Nebraska. I never lived there. It's just once it's in your family's blood, it just never leaves. I was born in Alabama. We lived in Minnesota and North Carolina, and I moved to Utah when I was 7. I lived there most of my life, but I was born back east, so.
Okay. So can you tell us, like, was there anything that you went through as a kid or growing up that was one of the hardest challenges for you as a person?
Oh, I think we all have our challenges, whether it's, forces or, I was super shy. I didn't have a lot of confidence, and it impacted me even as I got older. I'm a people pleaser now. I'm better at it, but you put a lot of pressure on yourself. You just wanna continually please everybody, and so those were things, even as I've gotten older, that I've had to just note of and try to improve at being so hard on myself, or
Yeah.
working through things. So I think just the normal things other people go through, definitely not stories
Yeah.
you will share, but, no, it's you have your challenges,
Yeah.
and always felt like you don't challenges kinda shape who you are, but if you use them for an excuse your whole life, I
Yeah.
feel like that's a cop out. I think just like with you, you have every excuse there is to
Yeah.
mad at the world and not successful. There's a point where you have to take responsibility, and so I've always kinda had that attitude, and to make the best of any obstacle that comes.
Would you say there was somebody like in your childhood growing up that you leaned on the most and depended on or kind of helped guide you and kind of change your perspective on life?
It wasn't when I was a kid, it was when I was probably about 21 when I decided to go back to school and become a teacher. There was a guy by the name of Roger Tollerud, and, he sees this, he'll die. Well, he knows, though, he knows that he was that person. Secretary, and we had to write we were I was con we were a contractor, and I had to do
Yeah.
everybody's resumes, and I had to type them up, and at the very top, it had their name, it had their degree, and it had their title. I had to do one for me as well. The only thing I could put was my name. I had no degree. I really didn't have any title. It was really that was another pivotal moment in my life where I was like, if I die, I have nothing to put under my name. I know that sounds silly, but
Yeah.
it was really a pivotal time, and he talked me into going back to school. I've never felt like I was super smart. I had to study super hard, still do. Like I said
Yeah.
prior to us recording, a lot of times I'm like a goldfish. I go around the bowl once and forget everything. And that's kind of how school was for me too. I really struggled in school. So when I went to college, he helped me. He helped me write my papers and edit them and encouraged me to keep going. And he was the person that really changed the direction of my life as an adult, become
Okay.
a teacher and a principal.
That's great. And thanks for sharing that. Like I say, it's always great to kind of have people to kind of change your perspective or kind of, make an impact, just like, you and a couple other people as well. Okay. The other thing I was going to say is obviously, I don't know if you remember when I came to but prior to coming to LCA, there was a lot of things that were beneath the surface beyond, the people didn't really know about. Been taken from my family, from Nigeria, had to come back to America. I haven't spent, all these years back in Nigeria because I was born here, obviously. So I spent all, my childhood growing up there and learning the culture, cuisine. So everything here was a whole new terrain to me. People move different, people talk different. I got made fun of for my accent. I got made fun of for being a little darker skin complexion. I slid in the corner of the classroom by teachers at like the elementary, onset all these schools. And so like I had a lot of problems. I was being targeted by a lot of people, but it wasn't because I was dumb or anything like that, but I was getting put in special ed classes. So I was supposed to go to Layton Christian Academy, my seventh grade year. Plans were made for me to come Layton Christian Academy my seventh grade year. So I was going to ask you if you remember that seventh grade year, what do you remember when I first came and walked into Layton Christian Academy that seventh grade year?
Were a lot. You were a lot. I saw that too. It was really sad. I could see the anger in you and didn't know how to when you're only at school a certain amount of hours, there's only so much influence you have on somebody. And
Yeah,
even other kids that have home issues, it breaks your heart, and you try to do everything you can at school, but you know that more hours are spent at home than are at school.
yeah,
So, it was a slow process. I mean, I remember you guys used to play basketball out in the parking lot, and a lot of fights and a lot of basketballs being thrown, and,
yeah,
people trying to intervene and stop and spread out and all that. I remember all those days, and there was always a kindness about you that I saw. Like, I knew there was more than it was just saw it as frustration more than anger. You didn't know how to get it out. And, I feel like that's something that I read pretty good is the environment of a room or of people very sensitive to someone sitting in the corner by themselves and gonna be that person that goes and sure they're seen,
yeah,
I may not have a lot of other gifts, but I feel like I do see people, and that's what I saw in you. I could see that you were a good kid and very smart. You were extremely frustrated, and I felt like it was just a volcano that was just bubbling all the time, and you just didn't know what to do with it. I also felt like you didn't know who to trust. Being bounced around a lot, you wanted to come get close to people. And even me and you would do that occasionally. I'd feel like I'd be making a breakthrough, and then I felt like you would just push away like, "Wait, can I really trust her? Like, is she really real?" And well, I mean, it wasn't like a couple months or I mean, I think it took through middle school for you to finally realize that I loved you and I cared for you and I was there for you, but, you couldn't do the things you were doing. Like, I still had to hold the bar of, "That's
yeah,
still unacceptable, you're gonna have to do a detention, or you're gonna have to stay after school," or whatever. Really tried to make sure I didn't let you off the hook, and I knew I couldn't because I felt like
yeah,
it wouldn't correct if you didn't. So, yeah, I remember you coming, and it was tough for a while there, and you struggled in math. I was your math teacher. Was something you really struggled in as well, and that created a whole 'nother frustration. And, but we worked through it, and you I would say after about a year, we finally had an understanding and became close. I feel like we had a different it wasn't that's the great thing about LCA is it wasn't just a teacher-student relationship. I really felt like we were family. Back in the day, it was, "You're not supposed to hug your students, you're not supposed to" and I was like, "I can't do that, like, hug ya. You need a hug and you're having a bad day, I'm gonna give you a hug," and that's how I felt like we were at LCA wasn't just student teacher, it was we're family and we were gonna work through it together, and yeah, it was tough when you first got there for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely agree. I was about 1.5, 2 years old when I left America because I was born in Ohio. So I spent my whole childhood in Nigeria, growing up learning their culture and everything. And then you come back at 10 years old and not even 4 months into being back, you get placed in foster care and get bounced around to different homes and,
Yeah,
not talk to my mom. I couldn't even pick up the phone because remember, it was AOL dial up at the time. So I couldn't just say,
yeah.
hey, mom, like, you know what I mean? I couldn't call nobody on that side of the family. I couldn't
I
just,
don't
yeah,
think I knew all that. Like,
yeah,
I don't think at that time I really had an understanding of what your life was like. Like, I knew you
yeah,
had your mom and dad, but I don't think I ever realized they were foster. I don't remember exactly, but
yeah,
it's not something that stuck in my head, so I'm not sure that I knew all the depth and the
yeah,
details. I just knew
yeah,
that, you were floating a little bit, and so that was hard
yeah.
too when you don't know the full story.
Yeah, and that's kinda like we talked about beneath the surface. Like I said, a lot of people didn't really know what I went through. About age 10, I was a grown up already. I was in different homes, getting shuffled around. People used me for the money from the government. I got denied food. Everything went missing in the homes. I got blamed for it. Even though I was telling the truth 100%, it's like, oh, you did it. You lying. So, like, to me, I was like, okay, what's the point of me even trying to justify and tell my truth, and people not taking the honest truth. So, like, that's why I bounced around and whatnot. So that's why all that stuff came from the trust. I was like, okay, I can't trust nobody. Okay, cool. Like, you know what I mean? I'll show you guys who I really
And
was. Then I'll,
survival. You
yeah,
you needed to survive, so you needed to fight, you were gonna fight. If you were gonna
yeah,
get mad and scare people off, but felt like it was more of a survival
yeah.
mode of, "I gotta take care of me because nobody else will."
Obviously, seventh grade year, that kind of went into, like I said, I struggled with math. Like I said, it was the language barrier at the time, even coming from Hillfield and Sunset. Like I said, I got isolated in the corner of classrooms. I'll be like raising my hand and ask questions like, hey, what does
Those
this
are tough
mean?
schools.
Yeah, yeah,
It's super tough.
yeah,
And did you say D?
yeah.
Did
The
you D
elementary.
yeah. Those are tough
Yeah.
schools.
All those schools I went to, Sunset, I got nitpicked, like everywhere. I remember, like I even brought up in the last episode with Pokemon cards, they were banned from the school, so I was just joking around with the kids. Hey, I'm a tattletale. And I just ran out to recess. I came back, I got buzzed on the intercom and, I got called to the teacher's office. They was like, hey, like, grab your stuff. You're getting expelled from school. So I'm like, what do you mean? So I was like, well, call your parents to come pick you up. So I'm like, for what? So they was like, well, you calling all these kids mother effers. This is before I even knew what a curse word was at the time. So I was like, what is a mother effer? Like, I didn't know what it meant at the time. You know what I mean? So I was like, what does that mean? So I was like, you lying, you lying. You know exactly what it means. So I'm like, what? It's like, well, all these kids, said you saying this. I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about. They had called my adoptive dad to come to the school to pick me up. And so I got expelled from Sunset because they said I was using all these profanity words. But I'm like, okay, whatever. And I guess next school. So to me, it was just natural. I was like, okay, next school, so that's what went from there. Went to Hillfield after that. Then from Hillfield, they had a little CARES program that I stayed there. So things kind of went a little bit better. Then I went to Clinton for my sixth grade year. Then ended up going to LCA seventh grade. So that's how all that stuff that kind of happened logistically underneath the core. And that's why I came to LCA, just kind of not trusting. I was like, okay, fine. I got to figure it out for myself. So,
Yeah. And you
yeah.
eventually
So,
did figure out those words.
yeah, eventually I just started doing what people were doing, basically. I never treated anybody bad. I just started using those words after, the fact that people just started telling me. I was like, okay, cool. I guess that's what it is. And that's what it came.
I'm
That was
just
the reality of
joking.
it all. I'm an LCA. As far as that goes, obviously playing sports and everything like that. Obviously, we just talked about some of the challenges, right? From your perspective, how do you feel like, you handle students with anger and frustration coming from my perspective, from my limelight, everything I came from?
It's tough because it's individually. I mean, because you almost have to test it out because some kids, you have to be just as tough back. It's almost like a dog. It's like who's alpha. And so sometimes you have to come back sterner and say, "This is unacceptable, and we're not doing this," and bark back at them like a mother dog does to a puppy. There's other kids that doesn't work. Like you, I don't feel like that worked. You're in survival mode. So if I come at you and I'm like, "Hey, I'm gonna be your mother dog and I'm gonna tell you this isn't the way it is," you're gonna fight back. And so I just found with you, I almost had to let you cool off for a little bit. I would have you just sit either outside my office or somewhere in the school. And it was amazing because I felt like it's funny that I remember all this. I mean, it's like it's just
Yeah.
coming back in floods. Almost like once you had time to sit and calm down and reflect, your senses would come to you. You were in the moment, it was fight or flight. Nothing was it didn't matter if it made sense or not. You were ready to fight, and I may not mean literally, but just in whatever the situation was. If I had you sit and just calm down for a minute, and we could talk and we could work it out, and you would typically say, "I'm sorry, they just made me mad, and this is why," and I could talk it through, and I think it got to a point where you still had those moments, but you recovered a lot faster. If you had an outburst or you had a frustration level, we could talk about it quicker and quicker. And to the point where I felt like you started self-correcting. We didn't have to do it for you. You might blow up and you'd walk away and then you'd come back to whoever you were talking to. Because that was mostly what I saw with you is blow-ups. It was bursts. And I felt like as you got older, you learned how to regulate that yourself. And always I might have to, kinda say, "Hey, DJ, knock it off." And you would self-regulate and you would bring yourself back down. So, I think it just depends on the individual. You weren't one that you could come out full force. Maybe Coach Porter could, but he was so much taller than you that he could probably get away with it, but, I didn't find that worked with you. You needed a little bit of time to kinda calm down, think through it, and then we could talk reasonably, and you were actually not that hard to come around.
So what made you kind of want to invest in me at the time when everything was going on?
Well, that's the thing that I think I could give you other names and you would know them. You me, I guess. I don't know if this is everybody. There's certain kids that you look at and you see way more than what's the surface. And you inside you, it hurts you because you're like, if they only knew or only saw what I see, it's the potential. And you want to be that teacher that makes the difference. You want to, that's why most teachers go into the profession is there are some that just absolutely love English, I guess, but they want kids to love English or they want to find a subject they can teach. It isn't really the subject, it's the fact that they love kids and they want to make a difference in kids' lives because there are a lot of kids that are in homes that are not good or upbringings, and you want to be able to at least bridge the gap a little bit to give these kids a chance in life. So, I went into teaching, and that's what I loved, is I loved finding the kids that didn't see necessarily their potential, help them see that.
Yeah.
It's just in life or math. I was horrible at math. I mean, I became a math teacher, and I was horrible at math all the way up until college. I was going into elementary ed, and they had math classes, and they were teaching elementary math, and it wasn't even algebra. Teacher was amazing, and I was like, "Well, why didn't they teach it this way? I'd understand math if they would have taught it this way." So, I fell in love with the subject, but when I taught math at LCA, I saw that potential as well. So, I would try to get the kids that were like, "There's no way I'm gonna learn math." And you were one of those, like, you were just like, "I don't get it, I'm never gonna get it." Had a little side buddy, the 2 of you were like that, and the 2 of you were trouble in class. You were both the same way, you were just like, "I can't do it, I can't do it." And I could see the potential that you could. Would I could do it, you could do it. Like, I was in your and that's what I kept telling people, and when I would teach math, would go through all the steps, and the next day, typically another teacher would, "Okay, we've already done those steps, so we're gonna start here now at level C and keep going." I wouldn't, I'd start back at the top again. I remember that the kids that really got mad would drive them crazy because 'cause they're like, "We get it. Why are we doing this again?" And I'm like, "'Cause I was one of those." Didn't say this in
Yeah.
classic, of course, but I was
Yeah.
one of those kids, and I needed that refresher every day so that I could add to it. And, I just saw kids like you that struggled in that, and I wanted to make a difference.
Did you realize the impact you were having on me at the time with all the things you were doing and teaching
So,
wise?
really don't. Like, you hope you are, and such a gradual thing, it's like losing weight. You don't really see a difference unless you could go back and see where you were 3 years earlier. Like, it's just such an everyday gradual thing. It isn't until I left or that I retired that I got kids that would write me and say, "You have no idea." And I'm like, "Really?" I mean, I say it's like a bonus check, but don't at the time. You hope you are. You're praying that you are, and you're trying your darndest. I mean, God knows I put in enough hours. I was at the
Yeah.
school by 6:30 in the morning, and then half the time with sports, I was home at 9 at night. So, really told myself I wasn't working for anybody. Didn't work for Pastor Crowder. I didn't work for the Millers. I didn't work for LCA. Worked for the Lord. So, I really tried to give my all when I was at that school, and I always hoped it would make a difference, but you don't really ever see it. Other than, like, when you walked across the stage at graduation, we're beaming because
Yeah.
you made it and you're a fine young man, but did I make that difference? I don't know. To see you and it isn't a culminate I mean, Coach Porter and the Millers and
Yeah.
Pastor Crowder and all those guys, how everybody had an impact.
Yeah.
You don't see how much you did as you walk across that stage. It's just we did it, and it's really
Yeah.
it's the reward is seeing these kids grow up to be.
Yeah, and I could kinda agree to that too, and I never thought I'd walk across that stage, and I walked across the stage. It was something I had dreamed as a kid, thinking about getting my education because my education was very, strict and it was like a priority that you get your education, and that was something like I promised my mom that I would do. Everybody it was a combination, everybody kinda working together. So, thank you for that perspective, and I was gonna ask you as well too, well, what changes did you start to see in me, and what do you think helped me kinda start turning things around?
Sports was a huge thing for you. It taught you discipline. We're under Coach Porter, and he didn't play games. And he was one that would be the mama dog or daddy dog, and kinda put you in your spot if you needed it, and that's when I started seeing a big change in you s a whole. So, when you started high school, I think probably your ninth grade year, it was still between ninth and 10th, it was a little rougher as far as taking your school serious. You were just like any other teenager where you didn't wanna do your homework or, um, study or whatever, but then as you ended up going into your junior and senior year, I think you saw the light at the end of the tunnel and potential that you had to go to college and play sports and your nose down to the grind to get it done and get it finished and learn. And I really saw a growth in you at the end of your high school year. And then after you left, just seeing you again, we were talking about this beforehand, we just kind of chat here and there on Facebook. So I've followed you on Facebook and I've missed some things, but seeing you playing football and doing real estate, and I mean, I'm just like, "Oh my gosh," to see the potential in you, and you did, where you started in 7th
Yeah,
grade was just, you should be extremely proud of yourself, extremely.
yeah. Yeah, so thank you. Sports kind of played the biggest catalyst for everything, to get me a way to kind of express my anger out. I played basketball, baseball, ran
You were
track,
great
just
at
featuring
all
the bay.
of them. I have never seen it to this day, I've never seen an athlete like you. We were talking about it beforehand where we were at a game and you stole the ball and you were running to the other end to throw up. You were trying to do a layup because nobody was even close to you. They were
Yeah,
all talent, even your own teammates. You went to do a layup, but you were going so fast. You were extremely fast. You had to almost throw it up because you were running past the hoop. I don't remember if you made it or not. I just remember how fast you were running. So track was a really good one for you too. I think that really did help with your energy out and your anger out, but you were extremely talented in sports for sure.
yeah. I think that became, like you said, the escape. You know, what I mean, a lot of people need something to kind of, like you said, express themselves. And I think sports became that catalyst for me to kind of get everything out. And so, everything I did from soccer to baseball, it was like, oh, go one sport to next sport to next sport. Kind of helped me get all that frustration out.
I think it helped your self-esteem
Yeah,
because that's what I saw change. It was when you first came, it was, it's the world against me and not necessarily poor me, but kind of that feeling as you excelled in sports and you started seeing how great you were and it wasn't just people saying, "Hey DJ, you're doing a great job." I mean, like you were blowing records and all that stuff. I think it really boosted your confidence. I think that's when you started making a change going, "Okay, well, if I'm good at this, I can be good at other things too." I think it really changed your confidence, the
yeah.
sports for sure.
Dealing with everything I dealt with throughout middle school and being isolated and just felt like I was not good enough. I remember running sprints and I used to always have to be number one. I was always beating everybody in sprints. So when everything I did, I felt like running was something I was good at because that was how I was getting my frustration. I felt like I was just running through a wall all the time. So I always had to push myself to that level. Like I was always had to empty my tank all the time. Like you say, that boosted my confidence to always be like, oh, I'm gonna beat you. You know, like I was competing with everybody else. Like you guys gotta catch up to me. So I was always setting that standard to everybody else. Even in basketball, everybody used to hate running with me because I was always finishing first. So we'd be running sprints, everybody go sit on the other end and be like, nah, we're not running with you. And so Coach Porter did a good job with that. And I think a lot of people did, even in soccer, scoring like 20 goals my senior year. Everything
Fun
just
to
like you said,
watch.
Bill. Yeah, it was
In fact, when
crazy to
that
kind of
when
look
that
at.
class graduated, it was hard because that was we
Yeah,
went to every game, whether it was soccer,
yeah,
track, football, it didn't matter,
yeah,
and that was a year when your senior class graduated, that was tough because that was
yeah.
a great athletes during that year.
Yeah, I think we set the bar because we broke the first state championship that year. That's when the kind of schools started winning everything. We won the first one, so it was a combination, just kind of building everything throughout the years, and going from LCA being on the opposite wing to not having the basketball court to all the years we dealt with playing at Swenson Gym and Weaver
Yep,
State to, what I mean, playing all these other places, practice and facility, and obviously the senior year to have our own facility, our own gym, everything to kind of welcome it and then kind of win that state championship. I think that was like the biggest gift we could do for LCA overall collectively that year. So it was
I would
amazing,
agree.
like you said.
It was really a fun.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that perspective. And then obviously going through our high school, you kind of watched me grow as a person. What would you say the defining moment was for me?
Gosh, there's so many games that I've watched, and, that was my thing. I loved sports, and
Yeah,
even with my kids, I'd go watch their practices. I mean, that's how lame I am, and so,
yeah,
just seen so many games that I don't know if there's one defining other than, like you say, the state championship, soccer. You guys did, track, you did amazing in track, like, of those were good at everything, so it was fun to watch you in whatever sport it was. So I don't know that I have, like, one defining moment, just your whole athletic career was just amazing to be a part of, to watch, and knew that you would do something after high school because you had to, like,
yeah, yeah.
had all sorts of options, you were good at all of them, but know which one you'd pick, but it's really fun and, enjoyed watching all of it.
So oftentimes teachers, right? What do teachers see the other students, kind of other teachers and other people miss most of the time? What do you see in students most of the time that people don't see?
Think sometimes we focus too much on the curriculum. It's important, but if they don't know that you love them and they don't know that it means something to you, like, it doesn't matter. Like a parent, even, I pushed my kids really hard academically. And there's so many crazy stories of me with my kids academically. And now that I'm older and I look back, I think education is important, make it too important. I think instead, we need to make sure as teachers that teaching life skills. We're teaching kids how to be compassionate. We need to teach them how to be responsible. Doesn't necessarily have to be in schoolwork. Need to teach them to love each other and be kind. And just because we may not agree, we can agree to disagree, which I think is
Yeah,
something we struggle with a lot right now. I think sometimes I think the state and the education department puts a lot of we didn't have this in private, but public, there's such a focus on test scores and, passing rates and graduation rates, and I think the teachers have so much pressure to get these kids to perform. We miss, I think, the big picture. I think if we would focus on more the kernel of these kids, the academics would follow, like and to the level that it needs to. Do you need to have straight A's? You need to be the best in the class. You need to know
yeah.
every periodic table. I mean, you use it now. Oh, so some of that is important, but I just think sometimes we focus a little too much on the subject and not as much on individual kid and just loving on them.
Why would you say patience is important for teachers kind of going through and teaching right now?
The teacher, that's probably the hardest thing we have to deal with is our own patience. I'm guilty. I'm sure there's a million kids that could say Miss Elmy lost her patience because at home she was called Psycho Mom. So I'm sure at school it was Psycho Miss Elmy because you do lose your patience. When you are tired and you have a room full of kids, you've got kids that are being disruptive and you're trying to get them under control and you can't and you lose control, lose your patience. probably one of the hardest things that a teacher has to do. It's the most important. There it's I did with you, walk outside and count to 10 and take a couple deep breaths and realize they're just kids and they're doing what kids do. They're not adults. I think sometimes we want to teach them and we want them to act like adults, and they're not. They're kids. So, you can do a lot of damage when you lose your patience. You can say a lot of things that you wish you didn't say or show anger to kids that maybe handle the anger, have that enough at home. They don't need it at school too. To be really careful. It's a double-edged sword. I think it's one of the hardest things you do as a teacher to have. It's also one of the most important things. And so it's a tough balancing act. You've got to have a lot of tools in your belt to figure out how
Most
you're going to
definitely.
manage that.
Most definitely. Yeah.
Big
And
thing with
so
that is classroom management. If you want to have class that's under control, and that's the one thing that I really tried to do. If you remember, I had folders on the you in groups, you all had your jobs, I had you busy, and I tried so hard to make the transition time smooth. Because once you lose control of a class, really hard to bring them back in, and that's where the frustration level starts to get out of hand and the teachers get out of hand, so I think that's really hard, and I have a lot of respect for teachers. I'm not in the classroom anymore. I have an online job with a school, and so
yeah.
I'm not in the classroom anymore, and I don't know if I don't know if I have the patience anymore.
Like what would be some advice or some words you can tell teachers right now dealing with difficult students?
Classroom management is huge. There was a book, I think it was called Envoy. It was a very basic book that it was the actual writer of the book did a seminar for us at when I was in the public school. It was such easy things, but so important. And for example, like to say that you're taking a test, a spelling test, and you're giving all the words. When you get to the last word and you say, okay, your spelling word is I spell it happens to the room the minute you give the last word. Everybody starts talking, it disrupts. And one of the things that he taught us in that book, and this is just one example of 100, said when you get to number 9, the word, and then you say, okay, I'm going to give you the last word. But when I give you that last word, I'm going to tell you that you need to go over and put your test over in this folder. I need you to pull out your math book. I want it at a noise level 0. I want you to open your book up to 37. And then he'd say, number 10, the everybody's attention because they're waiting for that last word. You try to do that after you gave the last word, everybody's talking,
It's not
nobody's
gonna
listening
work.
to you. So this book was pivotal for me as a teacher because he had all of these really key things that helped you keep your class under control. Because if that you can't teach a thing, all the kids are going in 20, it's like herding cats. They're just all over the
Yeah.
place. And your patience and your frustration and kids that wanna learn, their frustration, and the kids that don't wanna learn, their free reign now, it just becomes this mess. So, classroom manage it. I don't care how well you know your subject, and you know this from LCA.
Yeah.
You had a teacher that didn't have classroom management, it was a zoo. It's a
Most
zoo.
definitely. Yeah, thanks for that advice and feedback. Currently, I'm in education as well too. So, like you talked about, that's my biggest thing is classroom management. Kids know what they're doing, have all the resources they need or whatnot. So, thanks for that perspective. Okay. Um, collectively overall, okay. Seeing me now, where I'm at and things I'm doing. Okay. What does that feel like for you? Seeing me where I'm at now.
Like a mom that's just proud, like, and you were my kid, and that's why I was saying we were family, and even though I don't get to have Thanksgiving dinner with you and see you once a year or whatever, you are in Atlanta occasionally, so I think we could hook
Yeah.
up sometimes.
Yeah. Most definitely.
But no, I'm beaming and proud, and, I never doubted it. I knew that you had this kind of potential. I just prayed that you would see it, and, you have. What I love about you is not only have you excelled in certain areas, but you continue to excel. Like you don't just stop at being a realtor and saying, okay, I've arrived, I have a career. Keep trying to find the things that can push you teaching or doing this podcast or life is a journey of learning and changing. And I get kids who don't want to go to college or don't want to have this job because they don't want to do it for the rest of their life. And my thought is, it isn't supposed to be for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Like if you do the same thing for 50 years, people do that and it works for some people, but you have that mentality, you'll never take a job because you don't want to work, at Subway 50 years. Well, neither do I, but
Yeah.
it's a job and it teaches you, become a manager, and then you can become a manager of something bigger. And so I love how you just continue to grow, push yourself, and to be a positive impact and give back others, because obviously teaching is giving back. You know that a lot of people poured into you, and so now you're doing that as well. You're not just taking, you're trying to give, and as kids, there's little DJs out there that need you, and so I'm really excited to see what you're doing, and I know there's a ton more that's in your future.
Well, yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thanks for that perspective. I definitely appreciate that. So most definitely. So when everything I've been through and kind of going through everything we talked about growing up, right? Did you ever think I'll be here today telling the story?
Absolutely. Absolutely, not a doubt in my mind. In fact, I think I'm the one that told you, and I'm sure others did as well, but when you were in high school, I said, "You need to write a book. Like, you need to write it. This isn't a normal story. This is" especially when I kidnapped and you were over in, Nigeria,
Yes, ma'am.
and we were scared to death. I mean, we knew you were out there all by yourself, just and we all wanted to go, What do we do? How can we get there? How do we find him? What do"
Yeah.
And, you came back and you weren't angry. Like, that was the surprising part to me. Really thought that you would come back. I wanna say you weren't devastated, but it was shocking when you came back that it wasn't, as negative as I thought it would be.
Yeah.
Obviously, you were glad to be back, but you were like, "Crazy, like, this is what happened to me." Thing, and
Yeah.
I remember telling you, "You need to write a book, like, this is not your normal story, you need to do a movie," because they'd say, there's no way this is real.
Yeah.
Nobody ever, gets just left in another country
Yeah.
and makes their way back and ends up being successful, so, absolutely, I knew you'd be here, there's no doubt.
Yeah, I think that was the crazy part about it, like a lot of people don't realize it because I had missed 3 months literally of my freshman year in high school, you know what I mean? And I remember it just like no other and being left in Nigeria with no school ID, no passport, you know what I mean? Had the police looking for me from
Had to
California to New
walk.
York and had to walk places, had to take transportation and then kind of getting back and kind of found out the devastating news of, after being gone, for all these years, that was kind of something that was like a shock to the heart. And I just leaned on the promises that I made certain people that I would make something in my life. And so I remember my grandfather just telling me, "Hey, you got to do what you got to do." You know what I mean? And make sure you take care of the family. So that's why I fought so hard. I couldn't just fall. I had so many people that I was looking out for. I remember, like, say, coming back, I remember, getting picked up, from the home and coming back after, the jet lag, whatever. I remember the student body coming outside and, just
Oh,
kind of
we're so
congratulating me
happy
and
to see you.
clapping. Everybody was so happy. And that kind of just made me feel good. Like my ego, my confidence. I'm like, okay, I got people now generating a little sense of community. You know what I mean? Because
Uh,
when I left, I had no sense of community. So, overall, what does this moment mean to you today? Just us talking and just kind of catching up after all these years.
Honored. Like I said, you don't know that you've made an impact until someone reaches out, and so when you reached out, I was like, "Okay, I've never done this, I've never done a podcast,
Yeah.
I'm probably gonna sound stupid, but for you, I will do anything." But it's definitely an honor, and it's another, check that I get. Like I said, anytime you get someone that
Yeah.
says they've done something, it's a paycheck, so I feel like today I got a big bonus check, and so very thankful.
No, I'm grateful that you had that, like you said, and I'll be the first person to tell you my objective is to give people their flowers and tell you like you did make an impact. I know when you was 21 years old and trying to figure things out and not thinking like you made an impact, like you said, when you're in the moment, you don't realize the impact you make. And just like me, when I was going through everything I was going through, playing sports, doing all these things, I didn't really see the impact of what I was doing. To me, I was like, oh, I'm just playing sports, but everybody's seeing I'm doing all these great things and playing
Mhm.
football and basketball, speech and debate. But me, I'm like, okay, I'm just here. You know what I mean? I'm just here as a body. I'm just going through the motions. But as I sit back and connect the dots looking backwards, I'm like, man, like these people, like you said, talking to me like, man, you would make an impact. You doing this, you doing this. I'm like, huh? What? I was really doing that? Like,
Right, and you were a great
okay. And
role model for
yeah,
younger kids in school too. When you were a junior
yeah,
and senior, that you
yeah,
showed kids that struggled, that
yeah,
watched you mentor kids even as young as junior and senior, so even back then, you were a role model.
yeah. So yeah, for sure. Most definitely. So I want to first thank you, for taking time out your busy day to be. Yeah, this is moments like this that remind us Sometimes it only takes one person sometimes in our lives, one person to believe in you, one person to see you differently, and one person to change everything. Miss Elmy, I appreciate you more than you know. I hope you know that from the bottom of my heart. So this is why
Yeah.
this is beneath the surface. We kind of dug a little bit deeper than the surface level stuff, and people got to see beneath the surface, the stories that made us who we are. So thank you guys for watching. Stay tuned for the next episode.
Yeah, I love you because I always told you that too.
Love you too.